so I hope the microphone works. Hello, I'm Martin Prokop, study here at the Department of Philosophy, and I'm glad to present you my topic called What if the expert lies? With subtitle How to Review a Lying Expert. So we can start with outline. It's simple, only 3 points. My presentation focuses on more or less an expert opinion, argument from expert opinion, but I hope that I remarks some important, important information about phenomenon of lying. So at the beginning, I want to explain or define what is an argument from expert opinion. I think that all of us has some intuition that that kind of argument has at least three parts. The first is that there is somebody who asserts some proposition, then the claim that that guy, that man, is an expert, and the conclusion follows that the proposition is true. This is, I think, the narrowest version of that argument. The point is, who is an expert and why he supports that conclusion. Now, to begin with, I think that is helpful to start with the definition of argumentum from ad verecundiam by John Locke, who said that, which is translated to the English as appeal to modesty or appeal to great names, which means that the support for the conclusion is that somebody with a big authority also asserts this conclusion. It can be seen that this definition is quite emotional or institutional, and this is the problem. The first remark to phenomenon of lying is that this approach to argument from authority gives the authority the good place for lying. The narrower concept, which is used currently, can be called an expert, and we can define it is like this. So the first condition is that it's somebody who knows more than me, where the verb knows means something like he have a good skill, he have a testimony, or he have a knowledge. And the second part is that he exceeds a minimum epistemic desiderata, which simply means that the smartest guy in the room is an expert. He has to have something more, know something more. This approach to expertise, assume or want to say that expert is somebody as a scientist who has to comply, the scientific criteria. So he is transparent, he is obligated to answer the question, he is obligated to explain, he is obligated to be true. So in this concept, I think there is not as good place for a line, but it is there also. And why? It's because this expertise, despite the definition, is still institutional. Because the way how somebody becomes to be an expert is that he is a part of some institution or so on. So this brings me to the next slide, and I want to explain how extraordinary an expert is in respect of notion of lying. And I think that we need to distinguish two ways. At first, expert is extraordinary epistemically. It means, if you imagine a scenario that there is a layperson which seeks for an information by an expert, he has to answer the several questions. For example, how I can recognize an expert. So it means the other question can be, how can I understand the expert? And then the questions like, how I can recognize that an expert lies or is biased or is fraud. It means that we as a layperson who seeking the information by an expert, we don't know something what he knows, and this is again the good place for lying. And it depends on expert trustworthiness if he commits a lie or not. Another way how an expert is extraordinary is that we can call it the logical way, which simply means, what does it mean? You can look at the usage of argument or expert opinion in two ways. The first way, a classic way, is called, or can be called like a direct model, which simply means that expert is a subject of questioning of some layperson. You ask some expert for some information. This is not as often in usage, and but it's basic. And the second model can be called as indirect model. Can be described like this: there are two laypersons who's arguing, and then one of them uses an argument from expert opinion to support his argument. In this case, the expert is an external support or external authority for the argument of layperson. This is, for example, the reason why pragma dialectics say that argument from expert opinion is fallacy, simply because the layperson give away his epistemic responsibility and use an external support or external person who is not take a part of a discussion, and it means that he cannot help us on understanding the issue. And according to this model, there is also good place for lying, for misinterpretation, misposition, and so on. And what is the point? The point is that this usage is most common usage of the argument. So now the question is, how can we challenge the usage of argument from expert opinion in both scenarios, in direct and indirect? We can use the Douglas-Walton approach. Douglas-Walton provides us a list of argumentation schemes, which simply the part of arguments, and he give us the related critical questions, which are designed to challenge the part of the arguments which tends to be faulty. What simply means that there are good markers which show us that there is something wrong with an argument. According to Douglas-Walton dialogical model of argumentation, the proponent is obligated to answer that critical questions, and moreover, that critical questions are able to change the burden of proof. Now we can look to critical questions which are related to argument from expert opinion. There are 6 questions, and I split them into 2 groups. I want to say the first group, which is the question which aims the trustworthiness of an expert, is a special, and there are the last 5 questions which can be called something like proposition questions, because they aims the proposition, expertise of an expert, and so on. And the first question, the trustworthiness question, aim the character of an expert. So this question is E personally reliable as a source? And Douglas-Walton splits them into 3 sub-questions. Is he biased, is he honest, and is he conscientious? Why he choose these 3 sub-questions, we don't know. And if we look to references to other literature, we can see that other authors use terms like personally reliable, ethical aspects, credibility, veracity, syncreticity, and so on. It is, as you can obviously think, arbitrary, but it can be useful, we will see. And one important remark here is that this approach, to target or to aim the person who used an argument and to ask whether it is trustworthiness or not, is quite related to fallacy ad hominem. And you can look to the fallacy ad hominem and argument from expert opinion like 2 opposites. The argument from expert opinion is something like to predict positive abilities or positive predicates to a person, and it follows that because he has something positive, he provides us good arguments or good opinions. And in opposite, to predict to somebody that he is stupid, biased, and so on, it is a mark that he provides us bad arguments. It is, I think, important remark, and it's one of point which argument theorists say discussing. So what about these questions? The first part, the first question is whether the expert is biased. The main problem is that we don't know what does it mean, what is biased, and the next problem is that almost every one of us is somehow biased, and the point is what is a good bias and what is a bad bias. Actually, we are able in common situation to know, for example, that at court trial, when an expert who gives an opinion is paid for the part which is, well, you know, get money from his part, is biased. But this is a good mark that his opinion is bad. So, most theorists said that vested interest undermine the trustworthiness, but the bias is not sufficient to refute an argument simply because we have to focus on that opinion. And how can be that sub-question used in the direct and indirect model? In case of direct model, I would say this is not as useful because if we find the expert and we are going to ask him for something, we assume that he is not biased. But this is very useful in case of indirect model. So if somebody uses an argument from expert opinion, it's good to ask if he has some vested interest to use this argument. For example, of course, to support his conclusion. The situation is quite similar in case of I call it character because, you know, as I said, it's arbitrary. So in case of honesty, you can, for example, look whether the layperson which argued with you has some criminal records, and so she lied in past. And in this case, it can be, let's say, the marker for you that he does he can make something strange with an argument. In case of direct model, it is not as useful, I think. And the situation of conscientiousness, it's almost the same. You can look whether, for example, the layperson is professional, is careful with working with the sources and so on. So to sum up, I would say that the trustworthiness questions which challenge the character of an expert is can be useful in indirect model, not to challenge the lying expert, but to challenge the lying layperson. The situational proposition question is different. The main problem is that we are, as a layperson, epistemically limited. In case of direct model, we are sure that we don't know what the expert knows, and we need his opinion. So I guess we have to believe him, but we can try to challenge his opinion. And in case of indirect model, we will see. Now comes 5 questions, and I give you only fast overview because Wolfram defined 5 questions with 4 or 5 sub-questions. So, for example, the expertise question, as I said, it's challenge. It's a little bit vague, but I would say that it challenge not the person exactly, but it challenges person. It does not change person of an expert, but directly, but it challenge his expertise. So you can ask how credible is the expert as in sources. You can, for example, in case of indirect model, ask whether the expert who is quoted by your opponent really exists. This can solve the issues like German science prove that blah 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 blah. This can be really good used in case of indirect model. In case of direct model, I would say this is not useful because if you go to ask some expert, you know before who is he and what is his competence. The field question aiming the fact whether the expert is an expert to the field of the proposition. It's simple and intuitive. This can be used also in both models, but I would say that it's better in case of indirect model again because it's, I think, the common mistake that some layperson said that to use the argument of unrelated expert. The other question is opinion question, and it's simply aimed the fact whether expert's opinion is quoted exactly and in a proper way. It can be used, I would say, in case of indirect model. It does not make a sense in case of direct model. The consistency question targets the fact whether is expert opinion consistent with other experts in the field. It can be used in both model, and I would say this is one of the best questions. I want to remark that this kind of question is this kind of challenging is used by Socrates, but not in the way of consistency with other experts, but consistency of an expert itself. And the last question is called backup evidence question, and it's challenge the way how an expert comes to his conclusion. Okay, fine. So now to the main question: how to reveal a lying expert. I wrote in abstract that it's possible, and when I think about it, I think that we can use this assumption that committing a lie in argumentation has an equivalent consequences as a usage of false opinion. It means that what I mean by notion of consequences. It means that the truth value of the argument's conclusion is the same. From this assumption, this assumption implies that the phenomenon of lying in argumentation implies the using of false premises, and it simply means that when you're arguing with a stupid layperson, and you are also a layperson, it's the same like when you arguing with a lying layperson, and vice versa. It means that when you ask a lying expert, it's the same like to ask a stupid expert. And when Douglas Walton's questions covers the usage of false premises, they should cover also the case of a lying. This assumption does not mean that I want to say that lying can be reduced to to condition of truthfulness of the premises, but it means that lying can be found out, or you can reveal a lying by the best approach to reveal a lying is to challenge experts' opinion. And then lying does not, when you realize that somebody lies, it does not follow that he used a bad argument. This is only a, let's say, meta marker, and then you have to ask the other proposition questions. What does it mean for example, direct model? It means that a lying expert can be revealed by using proposition questions. It's simply because when you arguing or seek information by an expert, you are focused, your aim is to get truthful informations, and so you have to focus on his opinion and not his character. And furthermore, if you realize that he has a bad character, this is not sufficient to refute this argument. There are better strategies, for example, to ask the another experts about his opinion and so on. In case of indirect model, when there can be the layperson, there is a really probable that he have a vested interest, because commonly when we are arguing with other laypersons, we have some, we need something, something in personal sense. So it's obvious that we have a vested interest, and we are choosing the expert who supports our opinion and so on. So in this case, the trustworthiness question is really useful, but only as a marker. When you realize that some layperson is biased or it's unhonest and so on, it's a good marker for you that you have to work, that you have to double check all his arguments. So there is some meta check, which is like trustworthiness question, and then comes the check of his opinion, like the proposition questions. And you can, for example, then use the opinion of other experts. To illustrate that my thesis that the committing CaL have equivalent consequences as use the false premises is the case when two laypersons are arguing and both are truthful, and one layperson use the argument from expert opinion, and that expert is a liar. For example, for the reason that he, what is the reason why expert can be a liar? He needs some money for the next study and so on. In this case, we can interpret that lying, we can interpret it as the fact that the layperson choose the bad expert. And the fact that he is lying is on a mark. Okay, so I think it's all from my side. If you have any question,
Thank you very much, Martin. If you have a question, please ask.
Well, I have a question.
I suspected as much.
Anybody else? Maybe someone else? This is a genuine question, man. Thank you for the talk, but I enjoyed it, but I didn't understand the lying expert. Maybe I was just too tired. I think that we should open a window or something. But you seem to be saying that a lying expert uses false premise?
yes.
But how? Why is he a lying expert? Why would a stupid expert be identical to a lying expert? I would say that a lying expert is an insincere expert, a dishonest expert. You can have a false premise and think that it's a good premise. Experts make mistakes all the time, man. So, I wouldn't, maybe I didn't understand that. And I was also thinking about, is a lying expert genuinely an expert? Because an expert is a position that you occupy by satisfying certain conditions, requirements. One of the requirements is speaking from within the position that you occupy. So when you speak as a judge, you're not allowed to have your own opinion. You're following the law. When you're a member of the jury, you're a juror. You're not. When you're a teacher, So by lying, by being dishonest, you actually forfeit the right to be called an expert. So you pose as an expert, but you misrepresent yourself as an expert. What do you think about that? So can you please explain stupid expert equals lying expert, and this thought, please?
Yeah, so the first point, so I wanted to say that from the point of view of our aim, which is to get good arguments, it means the argument which uncover the truth or give us the truth. We can look at the lying in the same way as looking to the wrong arguments, because the outcome is the same, and we can, let's say, reduce the lying to the fact that the argument is wrong, and it can because I don't know how we can, let's say, catch the notion of lying in argumentation, because it's obvious that lying is, the lying breaks the standard of critical discussion and is unacceptable in argumentation. But the definition of lying is quite problematic. I think that the argumentarists are not able to provide their own definition. And if I use the standard definition with the fourth condition, for me, the best target is to ask to the truthfulness condition of the lying. Did I answer?
Okay. Yeah. Okay, but.
And regarding to second question, and is the question about whether whether the expert is expert evidenced. Yeah. It's a good question, because this issue, approach to the expert like that expert is something essentially. That it means why and I don't have an answer. I would say that in the same way, like you said, that sometimes experts are mistaken. They can sometimes lies, and it doesn't break their expertise.
Can I have a follow-up here? It relates to what when you say that attacking an expert authority is close to ad hominem. You need to know. I think that there's a fundamental difference in assessing statements made by experts and non-experts. When a non-expert makes a statement, challenging his credibility in some way would be ad hominem. For example, say that I'm a heavy smoker, and I tell my child, you should never smoke, it's terrible, it's going to kill you. And the child says, but you're smoking, so you have no right to tell me. That would be an ad hominem. The fact that I'm doing something doesn't mean that I don't know whether it's good or bad. But in expert, recognizing that someone is an expert is a form of reasoning. I don't know whether you read Gadamer, Truth and Method. So the Enlightenment, philosophers of the Enlightenment period were attacking church and expert and authorities. And they were rejecting all kinds of authorities except the authority of the mind. And then this brilliant German guy says, wait a minute, in order to recognize someone as an authority, you have to actually engage intellectually. So it's not accepting an expert opinion is not a capitulation of a mind. It's an act of reasoning. I reason, and by way of reasoning, I recognize you as an authority. So it's a completely different epistemic status. When you're an authority, by the time we reach the fact that you're an agreement that you're an authority, we already engaged in reasoning. And this is why we take your statement based on your say-so. But it's not your say-so, it's our reasoning that led us to seeing that you're an authority that justifies your say-so. Whereas in non-authority, the reasons that I give in support of my opinion support my opinion. So it's a kind of a different assessment of the same statement. Does it make sense? So a doctor says smoking causes cancer, smoking is bad. We're going to accept that because the doctor said so. But accepting someone as an expert gives a different set of reasons in support of the expert opinion.
Thank you. I have the same feeling that expertise is something, something like this which support my opinion. But regarding to your example, it is publicated by Moti Mizrahi a few years ago, and he discussed the situation where the expert to the health said that it is bad to smoke, but he is a smoker. And the question is, does this undermine his expert opinion? Yeah, this is a big question. I think that Moti Mizrahi answered it that it doesn't, because there is no assumption that expert has to obey his own expertise. So I don't know how to answer. This is really about this big discussion.
But notice, so when you challenge someone's expertise, it's not an ad hominem. It's not an ad hominem because challenging the expertise challenges the justification, the only justification the person has to make the claim. So that's not ad hominem. It's a genuine challenge. When I say smoking is bad and you say, Vlad, you're smoking, so shut up, that's ad hominem. Because I'm not saying it based on my authority, I'm saying it based on my experience. When I wake up, I'm coughing. I'm not smoking, thank God, anymore, but I used to smoke. So I can tell you that smoking is really, really bad. The best thing that happened to me was to stop smoking, to liberate myself from that. But an authority has a different justification. It's a completely different set. So by saying that someone is not an authority, you take away the justification they have for their claim.
There has to be a distinction between, let's say, administrative authority and cognitive authority.
Okay, nice man, I like that. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because if you
thanks.
say you don't smoke, you can smoke with an expert, use administrative authority, and
Yeah,
it's bad approach.
yeah. Thanks a lot. Man.
Thank you very much, Martin.